we'll start with you on this one. Meth and opioid addiction are huge issues facing our state. What can be done about it?
Thank you for that question. You know, 2 years ago, I tried to make sure that Star Academy was not sold by our state. I had visions of that academy being a meth and opioid treatment center out in the hills. I think that it would have been a very good restful place for people to go, a place of reflection, a place of healing. I think we need to have some type of a setting like that, and we need to have good counselors and go forth and deal with different methods of treatment rather than incarceration, especially if there's not a crime involved. I do think that, you know, I believe in that people become addicted. And so hopefully, you know, our state can take another look at it and see some viable options. I know Avera has opened up a treatment center, and that is one step, I guess, but that's more of a personal or private institution. I think we should have kept Star Academy open. It was a terrible blunder. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. As I mentioned in my opening statements, I am a social worker. I've worked in the prevention field for a few years now, as well as worked in the treatment field through grad school. And so this is something near and dear to my heart. And I think as a state, we need to focus on community-based care for addictions and treatment and prevention. Evidence-based says for years that we need to keep people in their communities where their support system is, and we need to make sure that those communities get the tools they need to help the treatment and help treat the individual. And so I think that means that we're looking at our regional mental health facilities, what we have, what we can do to get prevention in our schools, to educate our kids early on so they don't start that use. And opioids specifically in rural communities and farming communities is on the increase. And so I think that's something that we really have to focus on as a state and making sure that we're prioritizing those rural communities. Thank you.
I agree with Janae that we need to keep that treatment in community. Incarceration really isn't the answer, especially if there's not a crime or a violent crime being committed. We don't need to fill up our prisons. We don't need to make prisons a big business. And as far as opioid addiction goes, some of that's to blame on the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors that are pushing these medications on us for profit. And that's something that really shouldn't be for profit. Thank you.
A couple of years ago, the legislature passed a bill that tied the hands of our police officers in this area. I think we need to revisit that. I don't know that we need to back up to where we were, but we definitely need to revisit that. I think we need to focus on some more education and getting the help to the people who need it once they have been addicted. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe too that we should have continued education as far as trying to avoid the problems of becoming addicted and utilizing the opioids and other drugs. I do believe community-based issues or treatments are probably better than the alternative. So, thank you.
I agree with a great deal of what's been said by the prior speakers. I agree with what Caleb said. I would probably favor revisiting Senate Bill 70 and making some changes. I agree with what Janae said. We can definitely help with these community-based providers to help with that, help with the treatment. You know, Lana's idea too, I think that's one that could have worked too, and you know, unfortunately, Star Academy has now been sold, and that's not a possibility, but a lot of it is going to come down to the family unit. These families have got to do a better job of preventing this, and I think the breakdown of the family unit is certainly at least a symptom of the problem we have with this. So there's a lot of different things, and I agree with a lot of what's been said prior, but the family unit is certainly something that needs to improve for this.
I am by no means an expert when it comes to this topic. I recognize that meth use and opiate addiction is a problem. It's becoming a huge problem. So without having a whole lot of background, I guess what I would do is try to work with people like Janae, who are experts in the field, and try to figure out a solution that way. And just listen and educate myself, and that's what I got to say.
As somebody that worked with the tribal community in prevention on meth and opioid addiction, the tribe had enacted the Tribal Law and Order Act, and it included enhanced sentencing. And really what we find is that it isn't just stronger laws, tougher penalties, it's really about treatment. And what I'm finding, I'm not sure if anybody else saw the news, the media with Keloland's Angela Kennedy, to end the stigma, because there isn't a one of us that haven't been touched by this issue. Everybody has relatives or knows somebody that has struggled with this. And it is important to end that stigma, because not just treatment, but to bring them back into the community with that encouragement to allow them to be stronger and live a healthy life.
It's pretty exciting getting up here. Every time I get up, I know that I'm beating odds. Things are going good. Life is good. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol and opioids and things like this, I will tell you I'm on a narcotic, and it works. And there is a time for narcotics, and there's a time for controlling them. And I believe that controlling substances and abusing substances are things that we need to look at. We are doing a drain on our health and our human resource areas by having these things occur. We need to do more with prevention. We need to go after the people that are distributing the drugs, the people that are really making these things happen. We need to have more drug awareness. I know when our kids were younger and they were at Simmons School, they were very aware of what was going on because they had classes on drugs. And I remember Nancy Reagan said, just say no. You know what, sometimes my wife has said, just say no too, and it works. But police and drug enforcement are important too if we need to get to somebody else. So thank you very much.
You know, as I was waiting to talk in this issue, my mind went that there are a lot of components to this issue, and Carl touched on them. You know, it starts with education, and then Carl talked about his doctor's prescription. My mother-in-law was addicted in her last years of life to a pain-killing drug. At 93, did it make any difference? No. But look at all the components that talked about today. We've got family values come into this very strong. So it's an issue that we have to work, and there's so many components that we got to take it one step at a time and work for the best.